Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Isha, your host for the day. So, here we are today with another session about data discovery in 40 minutes. So, about us, Tsaaro is a data protection service provider which includes both security and privacy. We do privacy consulting and help organizations comply with privacy regulations and standards across the globe, whether it's GDPR, CCPA, or ISO. About Divebell. Divebell is a data security privacy platform. It helps organization get a clear view of what data is being stored within them. It is not just a compliance, it is also a security, and it helps you amp up your privacy compliance journey. So as for today, I'm Isha. I'm a CIPPE. I'm a senior data protection consultant at Tsaaro, a privacy enthusiast. For our speakers today, we have Ashish and Vinod, who are the subject matter experts. Vinod, over to you if you would like to give a brief intro about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Very good morning. Nice to meet you all virtually here. My name is Vinod, and I have a close to 6 years of work experience in data privacy and protection. I do hold a couple of certifications from IIPP, and I'm currently working as privacy compliance officer at Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism.
Ashish, if you could add something.
Sure. Hello, everyone. This is Ashish Rowdy. I am one of the co-founders of Divebell. As you can see, my role is Chief Product Officer there. We are a company based out of Silicon Valley.
So, what is data discovery? Vinod, would you like to take that up?
Sure, Isha. What is all about data discovery? It's all about understanding the type of information that your organization is is hosting in your applications, in your databases, right? This can be done either by having conversations with application owners or with the database owners and document the information. And it can also be done using the latest available automated tools that are in the market. So data discovery will help you understand the footprint of the data and how your data is interacting with upstream, downstream applications, and what data is present in where and which location of the server. And it will also help you to understand the structured and unstructured forms of data. For example, where your organization is collecting some sort of documents, and as part of those documents, it's really not possible for you to go and look out for each document and understand the type of information that is present in the document, right? So in order to have a better understanding and achieve better results, there are a lot of automated tools that are available in the market where you can just connect your applications databases into those tools, perform the scans, understand and validate the scans, and leverage the report that these tools provide you, so that you have a complete understanding and viewpoint of where exactly your data is present. That will help you to solve certain key challenges. Yeah, and like I said, uh, there are some challenges and aspects with respect to this data discovery if you go by manually, because you have to rely on the conversations with your application owners or business owners, and that would be a very challenging part, because it will be impossible for you to have a conversations with hundreds and 150 people and get the right fruitful information out of those conversations.
So, how can data discovery benefit an organization?
So our belief is that, you cannot really do any data privacy or any data security unless you understand what kind of data you have. As Vinod said earlier, data is in all different places, in your databases, in files, and in SaaS applications these days. So it's a very basic fundamental. It doesn't require any like advanced degrees or anything to understand that. Look, if you don't know where the data is and what kind of data it is, and how much and who's accessing it, how are you going to implement a good data privacy program, right?
Why do organizations need data discovery? Now we have understood what data discovery it is. Do organizations really need it, and how can they benefit from it?
Couple of things in order to meet the obligations of data privacy law, applicable laws and regulations to your organizations. First thing is you need to provide and fulfill their DSR requests. As part of it, it is important for your organization to know exactly what information that you are collected with respect to that person, and in which all systems that particular information is actually stored. So in order to fulfill that request, along with that, in order to know and apply privacy by default and privacy by design principles, uh, to meet those principles, you need to understand the personal data across your systems, across your applications, across your SaaS-based applications. And in order to do that, one thing is understand by performing data discovery what information is residing where. That will help you get the clarity of which information is present in which all applications. And when such DSR request comes to you, when you have that data footprint available for that particular personal data of a particular person, the amount of time that you take in order to fulfill the request will reduce significantly. That will help you achieve the obligations within a specified time frame. Along with that, if there is any data breach that happens in a particular application or particular system, and in order to know the significant and impact of that particular application that is linked with its downstream applications, uh, if you know the right set of information about what data is residing in those applications and its downstream applications, you could tend to evaluate the risk out of such incidents, and you could take immediate necessary measures to reduce the overall impact to further down. So these are the couple of things. Along with that, like I mentioned, uh, as an organization, you would have tend to collect different sort of information right from 15-20 years. So to meet the latest applicable laws, first thing is, as a privacy by default, you need to understand and keep the data what is relevant to you for your current business processes. So you need to identify all the redundant data that you are no longer using and need to delete it, so that you will not fall into unnecessary complications if there is any data breach that happens. So considering all these scenarios, data discovery is really important for an organization.
So how does data discovery aid in privacy implementation?
First, in order to understand the basic aspects of which processing is falling into high risk to rights and freedom of data subject, the basic factor is identifying and understanding with respect to such process what personal data that you are collecting and what type of sensitive personal data that you are collecting, and which all applications that that particular process is actually interacting with, extracting data or sending the data back after achieving its business purpose. In order to do that, like it mentioned, it helps you identify the type of personal and sensitive personal data. It will help you assist with documenting the context of processing, the type of systems that you use by performing data mapping. And as we discussed earlier, it helps increasing your efficiency in fulfilling DSR requests. And it will also, once you have a clear understanding about the information and which all systems that your particular business process is interacting with, you can parallelly look into the existing security and privacy controls that your organization have. If there is any room for an improvement or a room for add-on specific significant controls as it processing sensitive personal data, you can work with your team and improve your security and privacy posture there. And along with that, if you are collecting certain data attributes, and your business process has undergone many changes, and the certain data attributes that you have collected previously are no longer required for you, you can identify those aspects and you can delete that particular attributes from your system, so that you are complying with the privacy by default principle, where you are collecting and hosting minimal amount of data and having storing the data only for a specified period of time. Um, so, on a high level, these are the things that I have generally come across in my experience, how it helped me uh, to mature the existing privacy program in my previous organizations.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And just to add that, if you don't know what data is within your environment, you won't be able to achieve that transparency principle with the data subject. So you need to know that. So how is data discovery performed? Ashish, would you take that up?
Yeah, sure. So I think this picture is pretty descriptive in how generally the process goes. So, as we just discussed, right, you have to know what kind of data you have. That's the whole sort of foundation. So you start there, and then you have a rough idea of, okay, you have these applications, you have these databases, you have these SaaS applications. So some companies have a catalog or an application inventory, right? And they can start from there and say, okay, well, these are my applications, these are my databases, data lakes, data warehouses, whatever data sources you have. So you kind of make a list of it or inventory of it. And then essentially, if you have a tool, then you point that tool to your data sources. Once you point these tools at your data sources, they are going through a process. They're going to go through a process of whatever the scanning that they do to then figure out what kind of information exists. So it generally takes a little bit of time for these tools to figure out what kind of information there is in there. It's also important, of course, to define the taxonomy or define the types of data elements that are relevant to your business or to in the industry you're in. So healthcare or financial services, obviously, there's different kinds of sensitive data and personal data that you need to be aware of. So you set that up as well so that the information coming back is appropriate from these tools, from these discovery and classification tools. Once these tools come back with the results, you have a good understanding of what information there is, what kind, etc. Um, so you can get your data mapping done. You can, the other things that Vinod was talking about in terms of privacy compliance. But also, once we call it the baseline is set, you can then start to think about, well, how do I maintain this baseline? How do I maintain this sort of my good state environment? And that's where data protection comes in. So you want to then start thinking about setting up those rules to make sure your data environment is compliant, is satisfying your business policies and your requirements. So that's what data protection is about. And then once you have all this set up, you can leverage it in many different ways. You can use that same data because now you know where all the personal data is. When the subject request comes in, you know where that email address is, you know where the birth dates are, you know where the passport numbers are, right? So your subject requests become much more accurate, easy, fast for turnaround. And of course, we also hear about our customers using this information that they found out about the data for analyzing the data and leveraging the data for driving business goals. Because knowing what your data you have is not only important for compliance and security, but it's also important for the business to know that, oh, we didn't even know that we had this kind of information. So that's a whole different topic. But generally, that's sort of how that cycle goes. And so iteration is important. More you do it, the more you get better at it. If you do it on a regular basis, becomes much more effective, and the organizations operate much more efficiently once they have done this a few times.
Once we have talked about how data discovery is performed, but we also need to know what are the key challenges while I'm doing a data discovery. Vinod, would you like to answer that?
Sure. Based on my previous experience, the challenges that I've faced is um, if you are in an organization that does not have a clear inventory of the assets, applications, and databases that is being used by them, and also list of SaaS applications that are used by the organization, then you uh, you couldn't able to figure out the scope of the work itself, which all assets, applications, and databases that I need to connect and perform the data discovery. Along during the course of aspects, some other challenges that you face would be there might be some very high critical upstream applications that are used by the business throughout 5 day work, to five day working period, and in order to uh, establish the connection, perform the scans, you have to reach out to them, ask for the specific time frame that would not hamper the application itself or the business, right? So checking on those applications that are very high risk in nature with respect to business, understanding and getting the right set of time frame, when would be the suitable time for you to establish connections and perform the scans would be the other important aspect. Along with that, the tool will give you the scan results based on the algorithm that is it is being built on. Other key important aspect is validating those scan results. Sometimes the personal data that might be residing in a particular column of a particular table might be missed by the algorithm, but during that evaluation of the scan results, you might be able to pick up that column, and you can need to again go back to the respective application owner, business owner, and validate and get confirmation whether this particular column of a table contains personal data or not. And then you can rerun the scan again to see the the results. These are the other aspects, and other thing is, uh, with respect to management of right from collecting, purging, and protecting the data, right? So once you have performed the scan and identified the results, you need to work on the recommendations, or work on the changes that you want to bring in as part of the results of the data discovery. So you need to work with your, again, with your business owners, application owners, and your security teams to make sure if there is a data redundant that is being discovered, you need to set a specific timeline for it to delete those specific attributes of data. And once once you have implemented all the changes that what you want to bring in based on the scan results, other aspect is the data storage. Sometimes you would be now, organizations and many laws are coming with the data localization aspects. So if you are targeting global audience for a particular specific process and your data is being stored in EU, for example, with respect to Turkey, the Turkey existing law says that you have to take an explicit consent if you want to transfer data from Turkey to other regions. So you can figure out what are the data localization requirements, and you also tend to work with application owners to implement those data localization requirements based on the data discovery. So the challenges would be there with respect to implementation of the recommendations on the changes what you bring on based on the scan results. But during the course of scanning, the initial part is identifying the scope of work, and which all systems applications that you need to work or establish connection and perform the scans, and making sure that you are validating the results of the scan data is also something which is very very important. That would also take some time during this exercise, where you need to have calls with your application owners, business owners, run through them the validated results, get the confirmation whether these all the actual data attributes that we tend to see based on the discovery, is it something that you provide confirmation, or is there any changes that you see in the existing results. So these are the aspects, and maintaining the rerunning the scans, right? For example, you have performed the scan on an application a year before, and the application had gone multiple changes, and new data has been added into the application, or processed by the application. So you need to identify the applications that uh, uh, change their business processes frequently. So you need to set a time frame for such kind of applications to re-perform the scans within a quarterly or semi-annually. If there are applications that would generally not to tend go any changes, then you can perform the scans yearly based. So managing it and performing the rerun scans, understanding the changes that application generally tend to go through is something you need to do, and accordingly you need to set a project plan, perform the rerun of the scans, and make your systems and the data discovery results accurate and up to date during your journey.
Yeah, I think to sum that up, mainly it's the identification of data sources or databases, and sitting with the business teams to analyze whether there's any
Yeah.
false positive or not. So we are talking about how manual activity in data discovery can be a challenge, and how your privacy program, if you do a manual discovery, will totally be based upon somebody's word of mouth. So Ashish, how can tools help in data discovery?
Yeah. So again, in our opinion, automation is the key. I mean, doing it manually is, if you ask anyone, it's a very very hard thing to do, pull off, and it's a very painful process. Which is why companies a lot of times just do it annually, right? Okay, I'm not going to do it more than once a year because it's just too painful. So automation is the key, in our opinion, to doing effective data discovery because once you're set it up, so of course there is effort in setting it up, but once that is done, right, um, there's that one-time effort that you have to put in, but after that you reap the results of it. Once it's set up, then you don't have to worry about doing this manual process on a semi-annual basis or what have you. If you have the set up the scans in an appropriate way, you're going to get that information coming back to you as alerts and notifications in a proactive manner, so that you can maintain all your privacy artifacts, or security artifacts or compliance artifacts, as well as your data posture or privacy posture and security posture appropriately. So once the data starts coming back, there are all different kinds, as the slide is indicating, there are all different kinds of reports, visual clues, interactivity that you can start drawing.
So here we have a use case data discovery, static dashboards, analytical dashboards. Ashish, would you like to explain these?
Yeah. So as it says here, the analytical dashboards are more around, data, as it says, data exploration, right? That's the best word that comes to my mind. And analytical dashboards are more when you actually don't know sort of what you're looking for, what your metrics are, what your KPIs are, as it says on the other side. So you're more you're more in the exploration mode and analyzing the information to figure out, get to an answer, right? So I would say that they are popular not only with IT and development departments, even the business and application teams are also a lot of times interested in analytical dashboards that gives them the data exploration capability. Strategic dashboards, on the other hand, are dashboards and tools and reports that help you march down a particular path. You have already defined what are the things you are going to be measuring, at what frequency, and for what purpose. So this slide gives an example of a KPI on quarterly revenue, for example, is just one KPI. But typically, it is very action oriented. Strategic dashboards are very action oriented, and from a data discovery standpoint, you actually can see the application of data discovery. We see it on both sides. We see the exploration I was just talking about, where you notice something like unusual and you want to analyze that information, the flow of information as to how it got there, why it got there, et cetera, how much, how did it change over time, all those kinds of things on one hand. On the other hand, discovery is also important from a strategic standpoint, because you want to make sure that you have once you have your baseline defined, you have some KPI, you have some measures to see whether you are conforming to your measures, your controls, and if there are any exceptions. You can also track KPIs for things like subject requests, for example, which data discovery also helps you with, as to how many requests you're getting, how quickly you're turning them around, what kinds of requests, et cetera, et cetera. So we see application of data discovery both on the strategic dashboard side as well as on the analytical side.
Yeah, I think policy making is something that would come into both of them, and it would help you achieve maybe DSR requests or retentions. So about Divebell, we'll give a brief intro what Divebell is and how it helps comply with privacy standards. Ashish, would you share some light on that?
So as it says, right, Divebell is a SaaS platform that helps you do the data discovery, data mapping, and then data protection. It's a very powerful platform. We have designed it such that our customers don't have a lot of headaches in terms of getting it installed and configured and set up and scanning. All of these challenges we know about very, very well. And so we have tried to make it very lightweight so our customers can use it, can install it very quickly, and it can do scans of large amounts of data, all different kinds of data, structured, unstructured, SaaS, very, very quickly. So that's essentially what the Divebell SaaS platform is.
So these are some of the things that the discovery tool can help you achieve. We already talked about DSR requests, TROPA, and DPIAs. Ashish, if you'd like to add anything here.
Just one other thing is that if you're running a discovery tool, if you're scanning regularly, because you have history of what's going on, because every scan, your discovery tool and Divebell is recording what it's seeing, right? So if you wanted to, for example, breach, for example, or forensic analysis, if you wanted to understand, 6 months ago, what kind of data was here, right? What is the exposure like, if that application was breached or exposed. So you can do all that kind of analysis as well. And you can also see across time, how's their data footprint changing, how your sensitive data footprint changing. And so there are some very interesting use cases that will open up to you as well if you are doing these scans on a regular basis. But yeah, I mean, these are just some of the use cases our customers are using the Divebell data discovery tool for. But I'm sure you'll come up with more once you have a data discovery tool within your environment.
Thank you guys. Thank you for your time. You have been a lovely audience, and we'll see you in the next webinar.